Hello, class. My name is Zeb Stewart, and the educational thinker I'm going to talk about today is Colonel Francis Wayland Parker. Colonel Parker was a former colonel in the Union Army during the Civil War. After the war, he gained notoriety among educators for reforming schools in Massachusetts. I found Colonel Parker incredibly interesting and decided to talk about him today because, as we will revisit later, a common critique surrounding progressive education is that it's unrealistic. Critics of progressivism, often realists or essentialists, believe that students need to be strictly led by professional teachers, that children need a clear curriculum, and require an understanding of essential skills and knowledge to be productive members in society. Francis Wayland Parker was a colonel in one of the most horrific wars in American history. I assume he understood the harsh reality of the world better than most people. He also understood that there is a time for hierarchy and leadership in his experiences on the battlefield. However, when the war ended and the dust settled, he returned to education and was a pioneer for a movement that promoted student-led, experimental, and experiential learning. I have often assumed that military-minded individuals will take a more conservative approach to civil issues such as education, which makes Colonel Parker's story and ideology fascinating to me. After the war, Parker wanted to reform the American society. He saw how bad it had gotten. He was in the war, and he saw just kind of where society was going, I guess, from his perspective, and saw that it needed reform. And he believed that it could be reformed by starting with education. He was reacting, as far as his educational beliefs, he was reacting against traditional, essentialist school practices such as rote memorization and educational drills. Parker wanted education to be experienced and not memorized. He saw education as a developmental endeavor that occurred in and out of the classroom. He was intent on educating the whole child. Parker encouraged creativity and the appreciation of beauty. So the whole child, meaning their creativity, their ingenuity, their conceptualization, their ability to argue, like the whole thing. Not just that can you memorize this amount of information, do you understand this topic, do you understand that topic, like the whole, like it's all kind of inclusive. He would also often interweave art into all the content areas in the classroom, which is an aspect of this whole child idea, and also an aspect of his appreciation of beauty, that beauty could drive and motivate and inspire. The role of the teacher was to act as an expert assistant to the classroom rather than a dictator or just a professor standing up in the front. It was a assistant watching over the classroom. The teacher observed, evaluated, and recorded the emerging skills of the students, along with encouraging them in areas that they lacked. So far more observing, note taking, recording the progress of the student rather than dictating, professing, and leading the students. Critiques, as we talked about before, normally come from realists or essentialists. Progressivism and Parker have been criticized by essentialists who believe that education succeeds when it has well-defined goals, is teacher-led, and driven by subject matter curriculum, which we've already kind of talked about. But also, John Dewey, a pragmatist, saw there were some benefits to the progressive movement, but he also saw some downfalls. Dewey saw that progressive ideas understood that some participants would sometimes need to take more central leadership roles, and that hierarchy was sometimes pragmatically necessary to accomplish specific tasks. So Dewey saw that in these progressive classrooms, when they would go out and do and experience things and try to learn based off of the world around them, that became too much groupthink, became too much kind of going along with the group rather than actually understanding, articulating, and realizing each individual, that there was a bit too much groupthink happening, and that you need some amount of hierarchy, some amount of individual instruction, some amount of individual tasks, not just all group tasks, to be able to truly educate the upcoming generation. And then today, I think we can all see that the progressive movement has changed how we're educated. We aren't just bogged down by rote memorization anymore, or constant experienceless skills. We actually we have field trips. We integrate art. We differentialize learning. I think that's a big part thanks to Colonel Francis Wayland Parker. Thank you.